Okay, so we are going to be reading Act 1, Scenes 3 and then Scene 4, back to back in this video. So in Scene 3, we're in Polonius's chambers. Remember I said Polonius is the dad to Laertes and Ophelia. Laertes says goodbye to his sister Ophelia and tells her not to trust Hamlet's promises of love. Polonius joins them, sends Laertes off, then echoes Laertes' warnings to Ophelia, finally ordering her not to see Hamlet again. Okay, so that's what's happening in this scene. We are going to start reading. We are on page 39 if you have the book. Of course, on the website, Act 1, Scene 3 if you do not.
My necessaries are embarked. Farewell. And sister, as the winds give benefit and convey is assistant, do not sleep. But let me hear from you.
Do you doubt that?
For Hamlet and the trifling of his favor, hold it a fashion and a toy in blood, a violet in the youth of primy nature, forward, not permanent, sweet, not lasting, the perfume and suppliance of a minute, no more.
No more, but so.
Think it no more. For nature crescent does not grow alone in thews and bulk, but as this temple waxes, the inward service of the mind and soul grows wide withal. Perhaps he loves you now, and now no soil nor cottle doth besmirch the virtue of his will, but you must fear. His greatness weighed, his will is not his own, for he himself is subject to his birth. He may not, as unvalued persons do, carve for himself, for on his choice depends the safety and the health of this whole state. And therefore must his choice be circumscribed unto the voice and yielding of that body whereof he is the head. And if he says he loves you, it fits your wisdom so far to believe it, as he in his particular act and place may give his saying deed, which is no further than the main voice of Denmark goes withal. Then weigh what loss your honor may sustain, if with too credent ear you list his songs, or lose your heart, or your chaste treasure open to his unmastered importunity. Fear it, Ophelia, fear it, my dear sister, and keep you in the rear of your affection, out of the shot and danger of desire. The chariest maid is prodigal enough, if she unmask her beauty to the moon. Virtue itself scapes not calumnious strokes. The canker galls the infants of the spring too oft before their buttons be disclosed. And in the morn and liquid dew of youth, contagious blastments are most imminent. Be wary then. Best safety lies in fear. Youth to itself rebels, though none else near.
Okay, so Laertes is basically warning her to steer clear of Hamlet. You know, he's talking about Hamlet has a responsibility. Hamlet's next in line to the throne. Technically, he should be on the throne right now, so everybody seems to be ignoring that part. It's kind of weird. But if he's next in line to the throne, that means who he marries matters. So if you ever pay attention to like royal families, things like that, there's a bit of an idea of a person who is worthy of marrying a person who's going to become a monarch one day. And so Laertes is saying to Ophelia, like, probably you're not really high enough in social status to be the next Queen of Denmark. And if not, then you need to stay away from Hamlet, because you don't just want to be a flirtation with him. He says some pretty very specific things about not just being a flirtation for Hamlet, that you really need to steer clear. Don't let your emotions don't be wooed by Hamlet, because he's not going to marry you. So that can only go one direction. Okay, let's see what Ophelia says.
I shall the effect of this good lesson keep as watchman to my heart. But good my brother, do not, as some ungracious pastors do, show me the steep and thorny way to heaven, whilst like a puffed and reckless libertine himself the primrose path of dalliance treads, and recks not his own reed.
Oh, fear me not. I stay too long. bad. Here my father comes. A double blessing is a double grace. Occasion smiles upon a second leave.
Yet here, Laertes, aboard, aboard, for shame. The wind sits in the shoulder of your sail, and you are stayed for. There, my blessing with thee. And these few precepts in thy memory, look thou character. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. Those friends thou hast, and their adoption tried, grapple them unto thy soul with hoops of steel. But do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new-hatched, unfledged courage. Beware of entrance to a quarrel, but being in, bear't that the opposed may beware of thee. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy. Rich, not gaudy, for the apparel oft proclaims the man. And they in France of the best rank and station are of a most select and generous chief in that. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This, above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Farewell. My blessing season this in thee.
Most humbly do I take my leave, my lord.
Okay, so we have a very famous line there. So Polonius is giving Laertes like advice as he's leaving to go back to France. And he's telling him, like, giving him just dad advice. Hey, you're going to be traveling again. You're going to be out of the country. You're going to be out of my home. Here's some good advice for you. He says, but above everything else, to thine own self be true. So that's a very famous line. And it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. So if you're true to yourself, then you're not false to anyone. That's pretty good advice. I like it. Let's continue.
The time invests you. Go. Your servants tend.
Farewell, Ophelia, and remember well what I've said to you.
'Tis in my memory locked, and you yourself shall keep the key of it.
Farewell.
What is't, Ophelia, he hath said to you?
So, please you, something touching the Lord Hamlet.
Marry, well bethought. 'Tis told me he hath very oft of late given private time to you, and you yourself have of your audience been most free and bounteous. If it be so, as so 'tis put on me, and that in way of caution, I must tell you, you do not understand yourself so clearly as it behooves my daughter and your honor. What is between you? Give me up the truth.
He hath, my lord, of late made many tenders of his affection to me.
Affection? Pah! You speak like a green girl, unsifted in such perilous circumstance. Do you believe his tenders, as you call them?
I do not know, my lord, what I should think.
Marry, I will teach you. Think yourself a baby, that you have ta'en these tenders for true pay, which are not sterling. Tender yourself more dearly, or, not to crack the wind of the poor phrase running it thus, you'll tender me a fool.
My lord, he hath importuned me with love in honorable fashion.
Aye, fashion you may call it. Go to, go to.
And hath given countenance to his speech, my lord, with almost all the holy vows of heaven.
Aye, springes to catch woodcocks. I do know when the blood burns, how prodigal the soul lends the tongue vows. These blazes, daughter, giving more light than heat, extinct in both, even in their promise as it is a making, you must not take for fire. From this time, be something scanter of your maiden presence.
What?
Set your entreatments at a higher rate than a command to parle. For Lord Hamlet believes so much in him that he is young, and with a larger tether may he walk than may be given you. In few, Ophelia, do not believe his vows, for they are brokers, not of that dye which their investments show, but mere implorators of unholy suits, breathing like sanctified and pious bawds, the better to beguile. This is for all. I would not, in plain terms, From this time forth, have you so slender any moment leisure as to give words or talk with the Lord Hamlet. Look to it, I charge you. Come your ways.
I shall obey, my lord.
Okay, so Polonius is just basically warning her to steer clear of Hamlet. So Laertes had done that as well, and Laertes went away, but he mentioned it as he's leaving. Hey, don't forget what I said. And so Polonius is curious. He's like, what was he saying? What did he tell you? And she says, oh, just to, steer clear of Hamlet. And then Polonius is like, right, what's been going on with Hamlet lately? Said every parent to every adolescent ever, because you know how it is whenever you're in a relationship, maybe you're dating somebody new, you just it's a weird kind of private type of thing. You don't necessarily want to go around shrieking from the housetops that you're kind of in a relationship. It's almost like we feel nervous about it, superstitious. If we talk about it a lot, it might go away. And so a lot of times we kind of protect that early and new relationship. She's been talking to Hamlet. Hamlet's kind of talked about how much affection he has for her. He's talked about how much he likes her. But Polonius is like, you better not be listening to that. You better not be believing that. I bet. And he says, he tells her, he says, whenever she says, he's been telling me, made many tenders of his affection to me. Polonius is like, affection? You speak like a green girl, you young, stupid child, unsifted in such perilous circumstances. He's calling her stupid. Do you believe his tenders, as you call them? Said every guy ever, is basically what he's saying. Yes, they're going to tell you how much they love you. It's adorable. It means nothing. And she's like, I don't know. What should I think, Dad? Maybe I'm wrong. And he says, I'll tell you because you're just a baby. He's so belittling right now. He says that you have taken these tenders for true pay, which are not sterling. Tender yourself more dearly. Have more pride in yourself. Don't listen to every little thing that a guy is going to tell you. Sorry, gentlemen. Polonius protecting the daughter, just happening. And she's like, well, no, but he's said he loves me. He's been really honorable. Polonius is like, you betcha, for sure. And she's like, no, really. He's talked about, his whole speech. It's been like he's talked with holy vows of heaven. Like he's like vowing before God how much he loves me. And Polonius is like, yeah. He's just trying to, catch himself a little treat of some kind. So he's basically giving no credence at all to anything Hamlet's saying. So he basically tells her, stay away from Hamlet. You have no business going near him. You have no business talking to him. Remember that back in this era, women are very well protected, and really they're not supposed to be talking to boys. Not a cool thing. And so he really wants his daughter to definitely stop talking to Hamlet. And, he says, daughter, I want you to give me your word. And she's like, okay, I'll obey you, Dad. So that's where scene 3 ends. Now we're going to go on to scene 4. Now, scene 4, we are, it talks about while Claudius drinks away the night, Hamlet, Horatio, and Marcellus are visited by the ghost. It signals to Hamlet. Hamlet's friends try to stop his following the ghost, but Hamlet will not be held back. So this is scene 4 of Hamlet. Act 1, scene 4.
The air bites shrewdly. It is very cold. It is a nipping and an eager air. What hour now? I think it lacks of 12.
No, it is struck.
Indeed, I heard it not. It then draws near the season wherein the spirit hild is wont to walk. What does this mean, my lord?
The king doth wake tonight and takes his rouse, keeps wassail in the swaggering upspring reels, and as he drains his draughts of Rhenish down, the kettle drum and trumpet thus bray out the triumph of his pledge.
Is it a custom?
Aye, marry ist. But to my mind, though I am native here and to the manor born, it is a custom more honored in the breach than the observance.
This heavy-headed revel east and west makes us traduced and taxed of other nations. They clep us drunkards, and with swinish phrase soil our addition. And indeed it takes from our achievements, though performed at height, the pith and marrow of our attribute. So oft it chances in particular men that for some vicious mole of nature in them, as in their birth, wherein they are not guilty, since nature cannot choose his origin, by the o'ergrowth of some complexion, oft breaking down the pales and forts of reason, or by some habit that too much o'erleavens the form of plausive manners, that these men carrying, I say, the stamp of one defect, being nature's livery or fortune's star, his virtues else, be they as pure as grace, as infinite as man may undergo, shall in the general censure take corruption from that particular fault. The dram of evil doth all the noble substance of a doubt to his own scandal. Look!
Okay, let's pause for a second. So if you're wondering what's going on outside, there's like a bunch of trumpets blowing. It's like guns are going off, and they're like, whoa, what's going on? What's happening? Well, it turns out the King Claudius, he parties. And so he has these big kind of drunken parties where they're shooting off guns and they're drinking into all hours of the night. And that's what's happening right now. So they're up on the battlements of the castle. And so they're hearing all of this. And Hamlet's talking about how much it makes their country looks a bit trashy whenever the king's out partying all night long and shooting off guns. I mean, it just looks low. And other countries don't think as well of Denmark because of how trashy the king is acting. And maybe this is a custom that is somehow in their society. Maybe it's a custom that has happened before. But it sounds like this is something that Claudius is doing that maybe the old king had not been. So Hamlet is not a fan, nor the other guys. Okay, suddenly...
My lord, it comes. Angels and ministers of grace, defend us. Be thou a spirit of health or goblin damned. Bring with the airs from heaven or blasts from hell. Be thy intense wicked or charitable, thou comest in such a questionable shape that I will speak to thee. I'll call thee Hamlet, King, Father, Royal Dane. Oh, answer me. Let me not burst in ignorance, but tell why thy canonized bones, hearsed in death, have burst their cerements. Why the sepulchre wherein we saw thee quietly interred hath oped his ponderous and marble jaws to cast thee up again. What may this mean? That thou, dead corse, again in complete steel, revisits thus the glimpses of the moon, making night hideous, and we fools of nature so horridly to shake our disposition with thoughts beyond the reaches of our souls. Say, why is this? Wherefore? What should we do? It beckons you to go away with it, as if it's some impartment desire to you alone.
Look with what courteous action it waves you to a more removed ground, but do not go with it.
No, by no means. It will not speak. Then I will follow it.
Do not.
Okay, so Hamlet, I mean, imagine for a second if one of your parents had passed away and suddenly you see the ghost. Can you even imagine? That would be too crazy for me. And he's calling this ghost, he's referring to it by any name he can think of to get it to stop and pay him some attention, to talk to him. Well, the ghost eventually passes. It looks like the ghost passes where they're at, but it turns back and it beckons to Hamlet. And Hamlet's like, "Ooh, I'm going." And the other guys are like, "No, don't do it. It's scary. Don't go talk to a ghost." But Hamlet's like, "No, I'm definitely going to go talk to the ghost."
My lord, why? What should be the fear? I do not set my life at a pin's fee. And for my soul, what can it do to that, being a thing immortal as itself? It waves me forth again. I'll follow it.
What if it tempt you toward the flood, my lord?
or to the dreadful summit of the cliff that beetles o'er his base into the sea, and there assume some other horrible form which might deprive your sovereignty of reason and draw you into madness. Think of it! The very place puts toys of desperation without more motive into every brain that looks so many fathoms to the sea and hears it roar beneath.
It waves me still. Go on! I'll follow thee!
You shall not go, my lord!
Hold off your hands!
Rule, you shall not go!
My fate cries out, and makes each petty arter in this body as hardy as the Nemean lion's nerve. Still am I cold. Unhand me, gentlemen. By heaven, I'll make a ghost of him that lets me. I say away! Go on, I'll follow thee!
He waxes desperate with imagination.
Let's follow. 'Tis not fit thus to obey him.
Have after. To what issue will this come?
Something is rotten in the state of Denmark.
Heaven will direct it.
Nay, let's follow him.
Okay, so Hamlet definitely says he's going to follow this ghost. And there's really nothing they can do. I mean, he's basically demanding that they unhand him. They're trying to hold him back. No, don't go, don't follow the ghost. And he's like, no, I'm going. That's my dad, and I'm going to go. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to figure out what the heck's going on. And they finally come to the conclusion of, like, something is wrong in Denmark. We have the old dead king is, like, walking around as a ghost. That's weird. Hamlet's uncle is the new king. He's not letting him go back to school. Like, there's just weird stuff going on. And so they're concerned about their country, as they probably should be. And Hamlet's concerned about why the heck is his dad walking around as a ghost right now? Shouldn't he be like, I don't know, like, you know, singing in the heavenly choir or something better than what's happening? So he needs to find out why his father is a ghost. Okay, so that's where we end Act 1, Scene 4. See ya.